outside Latin America. I'm Teresa Bo in Bogotá. The victory of far-right Abelardo de la Espriella highlights the deep divisions in this country. For millions of voters, his promise to fight crime and armed groups with an iron fist offers a clear break from the current government. For many voters, Colombia needed a fundamentally different approach to security.
I'm Alessandro Ampietti outside Colombia's presidential palace, where the Espriella's hardline security proposals are reviving memories of some of the darkest chapters in the country's history, when paramilitary groups and state forces committed massacres and other grave human rights violations. Those crimes are now being investigated by the country's peace tribunal, which the president-elect has vowed to shut down.
In a region where voters have repeatedly rejected the political establishment, the elections in Colombia mark the biggest ideological swing in Latin America. De la Espriella's victory marks a clear shift to the right and a reset of the country's priorities. So who's the man at the center of it all, and what comes next? From behind bulletproof glass, Abelardo de la Espriella declared victory after one of the closest presidential elections in Colombia's recent history. In just a few years, de la Espriella went from being a well-known criminal lawyer to winning the presidency. He relied heavily on social media to get his message directly to voters. The far-right president-elect says he will save Colombia from rebels and organized crime. During the campaign, he used artificial intelligence to show how he will carry it out. He also said he will build 10 mega prisons like those President Nayib Bukele built in El Salvador. That's what Rodrigo Sanchez likes about him.
I
have always seen Abelardo with a strong hand who is going to put an end to criminal groups, guarantee security for everyone. For me, he is the Colombian Bukele. I have been promoting his campaign because I believe in him.
The 47-year-old lawyer is a millionaire who likes to sing opera. De la Espriella made most of his money as a criminal lawyer, some defending the groups he now swears he'll defeat. In the early 2000s, paramilitary forces linked to serious human rights abuses laid down their weapons after making an agreement with the government. His law firm defended several of them, charging millions of dollars in some cases. Gustavo Morales says the president-elect's work points to his beliefs.
If, in your law firm, you defend not one but many criminals, and especially many members of a paramilitary group, then it's not just a business. It becomes a political matter because it tells you where you come from. The country knows this and still voted for it.
De la Espriella has the support of Donald Trump. He says he will increase military cooperation with the U.S. to defeat armed groups and will help attack small boats in the Caribbean. Washington accuses them of carrying drugs, but many legal analysts have called the strikes illegal. He has also justified Israel's war on Gaza and says he will use a similar strategy in Colombia. But after his razor-thin election victory, he faces the biggest challenge of his career: governing a country deeply divided over how to confront violence, revive the economy, and move beyond decades of war. Colombia is a vast and diverse country, and although security is a concern almost everywhere, there is little consensus about how the next president should tackle it.
With an iron fist, you have to have a heavy hand to deal with insecurity.
Colombia es un país que lleva 70 años en guerra.
Colombia is a country that has been at war for 70 years. To pick Abelardo is a setback because for the first time we have a generation talking about peace. Our kids are talking about peace.
Security is the most important thing a nation has to have. If there is no security, there are no resources, there is nothing.
You don't fight violence with violence, because like this, we'll stay at war forever.
You have to get to a middle ground. Some groups you attack, and others you negotiate with.
One of the worst atrocities committed by state forces is known as the false positive scandal, in which mostly poor and innocent civilians were executed and then passed off as guerrilla fighters killed in combat. Most of these cases happened during the two administrations of President Álvaro Uribe, in which soldiers were rewarded for their results on the battlefield. Years later, many mothers are still searching for their children and now worry that the Espriella government could bring the country's search for truth to a halt. These women have spent years searching for their disappeared children, victims of Colombia's conflict. They gathered to learn about a new law granting them special protections, another step in Colombia's long efforts at reconciliation. Ana Páez's son was 32 and a father of 3 when he was lured away with the promise of a job. Instead, he became a victim of Colombia's false positive scandal, civilians executed by soldiers and falsely recorded as guerrillas killed in combat.
They told me he had been killed in combat by the army in Cimitarra, Santander. They claimed he was a guerrilla fighter. A guerrilla fighter, I said? Impossible.
For years, Ana and other mothers fought to clear their children's names. Instead, they faced threats, insults, and smear campaigns from a state unwilling to provide justice. The 2016 peace accord and a transitional justice process uncovered more than 7,000 cases of extrajudicial killings. President Gustavo Petro finally apologized on behalf of the state in 2023, but now many fear that could change. This is Colombia's special jurisdiction for peace, the tribunal created to uncover some of the worst crimes committed during the country's civil conflict. President-elect Abelardo de la Espriella is now promising to shut it down, which is leaving many victims worried that their search for answers will be cut short.
We fear everything is going to change completely because they say we have lied, that none of this is true, that people have been making it up when we're not making anything up.
Among those watching closely is Senator Yael Quiroga, who survived the extermination of the Patriotic Union, a legal left-wing movement whose members were systematically killed in the 1980s. She says de la Espriella's rhetoric about disemboweling the left is deeply alarming.
I told military commanders that I hope that during the next 4 years they will remember that their duty is to protect us. There have been too many painful events in this country, and we cannot allow them to be repeated. I fear this new government may not uphold the rule of law or defend human rights.
For these mothers, the search for justice is far from over. The next government could make finding the truth even harder.
20 years ago, Colombia was Washington's closest ally in South America. Billions of dollars of U.S. aid flowed into this country through Plan Colombia to help in the fight against armed groups. Washington poured billions of dollars to help launch an all-out offensive on left-wing guerrillas and also drug trafficking networks. But in 2022, Colombians chose a very different path by electing this country's first leftist leader, Gustavo Petro. Petro moved away from the US-led security framework. He expanded negotiations with armed groups. He halted the forced eradication of the coca leaf, which is used to produce cocaine, and he also reduced military operations across several parts of the country. But now, President-elect de la Espriella has fully embraced the US shield of the Americas, promising to join the security coalition when he's sworn into office in August. He supports bombing the camps used by armed groups. He wants to restart the massive aerial fumigation of the coca leaf. He wants to capture or kill the leaders of these armed groups, and he wants to deploy thousands of security forces across the country. Colombians have voted in favor of once again implementing tougher security measures against armed groups and reestablishing closer ties with Washington. Earlier, I spoke with Sandra Borda. She's a professor and an expert on international relations about what's been going on in this country. My first question is, we've seen Abelardo de la Espriella winning the presidency with just a little less than a point. He has promised to make lots of things in this country, among them defeat armed groups in 90 days. How feasible is this?
The main problem that we have right now is basically that we had a peace process with these organizations, both with guerrillas and with criminal organizations, and this empowered these organizations. So at this point of the story, they are controlling very important parts of the country, so he has to have a plan for the very first part of his term to do something about this and have a quick win.
One of the things he said is that he's going to put an end to the peace process that happened back in 2016. Do you think this is what's going to happen?
His idea is basically that he doesn't want to implement the result of that peace process. That peace process is over, right? And this is the peace process that demobilized the FARC, the most important insurgent group in Colombia. What he's planning to do right now, and this is also the agenda of the Democratic Center, is to end the transitional justice system. And this is going to be a problem because there is still a lot of people from the army and from the guerrillas trying to get into that system. I'm not quite sure that this is going to be a priority for him.
He has spoken about rebuilding the relationship with the United States and right now with Donald Trump. What do you think something like this looks like?
I think that it means, so far, this is a very personalized way to have foreign policy, both for Trump and for him. And I think that at this moment, that basically means that they are going to talk more often, that they are going to be in the same page when we're talking about the war against illegal drugs and against insurgent groups, that they are going to have a very similar agenda for Latin America. But I think that it's also important to keep in mind that this sort of alignment with the MAGA version of the Republican Party is not going to last forever.
Well, human rights organizations, when they listen to the rhetoric of Abelardo de la Espriella, they're concerned about human rights abuses, the false positive scandals in the past. Do you think that the situation is different now in the country? Do you think that the military has other controls in place?
I think that the armed forces are substantially different from the way, they used to fight the war back during the Uribe years. But I think that we're also going to need NGOs, human rights organizations, and the international community to pay close attention to this, because every single time that we try to alter the military equilibrium of power between organizations and the states, there's also problems. There's always problems with human rights issues, and that's something that you really need to be paying attention to.
With Abelardo de la Espriella set to take office, Colombia is preparing for a new chapter, one that will redefine its security strategy, its relationship with Washington, and the future of a country still searching for long-lasting peace. That's it from us, and now back to our headquarters in Doha.